Awesome. So, congratulations on one for my baby. When I heard about this, I was ecstatic. A lot of this music that is in this show, I grew up listening to, so I have fond memories of. Um, what is it like to put on a show with so much iconic music?
Well, one of the things we thought of is that, I mean, we both have loved Harold Arlen for decades. Uh, and while most people know Harold Arlen first from The Wizard of Oz,
Hmm.
it's like one of the first songwriters they ever heard in their lives, but they not necessarily connecting him with the same songwriter who wrote Blues in the Night, Stormy Weather, Come Rain or Come Shine, and all the other fantastic songs. And the thing is that, for instance, Gershwin,
Hmm.
who looked up to Harold Arlen tremendously, has had five Broadway shows
Hmm.
in the last 25 years. So Broadway shows that capitalize on his songs.
Sure, Crazy for You, My One and
The
Only,
nice work if
You
you
Can
can
Get
get
It.
it, fascinating rhythm. Like there's been a lot of Gershwin on Broadway, but Harold Arlen has not been presented on Broadway since he last wrote a Broadway show, which was something like 60, 70 years ago.
Wow.
And his music to me is some of the all-time best. I'm glad you know all of it.
Hmm.
Most people do. They just don't know that that's Harold Arlen. So we thought we have got to bring this guy back to the stage.
Absolutely. That was very important to us. And it really was I did a musical review
Hmm.
about Harold Arlen called Get Happy that I directed when I was in college. And that was a while ago. And I became obsessed with Harold Arlen. And it was always in my mind that, I wanted to do a show like this. So I basically said to my friend Fred Barton a number of years ago, I said, well, I'm going to sit down and write it. And he thought, yeah, well, right. He's going to really do that. Turns out I came back about 3 weeks later with a full draft of the script. And then the real process began because I said, Fred, I really don't think I can do this on my own. I need some help. And Fred, being the very smart dramaturgical guy that he is, he basically took my draft and started to turn it on its ear and started to make suggestions. And from there, we formulated the script that we have today that we're really proud of. And One for My Baby was born.
And there's a third writer involved,
Okay.
which was how our thought process worked when we hammered out the script line by line, word by word, character by character. We really imagined, and we have good imaginations, we imagined that Mr. Arlen was the third guy right here, sitting right here. So we weren't just throwing in tunes and
Hmm.
jamming songs in. We made him our collaborator. And we
Yeah.
listened very closely to the lyricists. I believe there are four lyricists
Uh-huh.
involved. Ira Gershwin, Johnny Mercer, Yip Harburg, and Ted Koehler were his main lyricists. And that forced us to pick songs that spoke with one voice.
Right.
Because one of the risks of a show like this, if you have three different lyricists, it can sound like three different people wrote it. And it
Hmm.
needs to sound as if one combination of people wrote it. And so that guided our song selection. We couldn't just use any old song we happened to
Hmm.
like. We found songs that were exactly in the same voice, and then we crafted the story and characters so that all speak with one voice.
We felt very, very blessed in that, the process of writing a new musical is very, very interesting.
Hmm.
You get folks right away who like it, and folks who, you know, I mean, the obvious thing is that when you're writing a new musical with songs like this, the obvious thing as well is the book going to serve them.
Hmm.
But out of all the critiques that we've had over the years as we put this together, the one critique we've never had was that a song felt like it didn't belong
Hmm.
in the moment for that particular character. And that to us was probably the greatest compliment of all.
Awesome. And as I'm reading the synopsis for this, it sounds like it would be a movie from the golden age of cinema. When this,
That's exactly it.
That's
That's
what it is.
exactly it.
You nailed it.
so how difficult is it to write something like that? Because that's not something you see nowadays.
It's there have been one or two musicals over the last maybe 30 years that were done and had a reference style.
Hmm.
Like the musical City of Angels was in the had captured sort of the early 50s film noir. Ours is set a little earlier, but the good thing about period writing, someone else asked me this recently. The interesting and good thing about period writing is that you have a frame of reference. Like many people have seen those black and white musicals and
Hmm.
thrillers and film noirs of our period, which is the post-World War II, very late 40s. So everyone, if they've seen such movies, and most people have a common frame of reference for that period. So it's we're not just sort of crafting an imaginary world,
Hmm.
but we have the entire reference of the movie library to draw from and stay true to.
Well, one of the reasons why um, I have to say, I mean, and I don't know what the final destination for the show is. We certainly hope that it will be seen beyond the El Portal, since this is the world premiere. But one of the problems with the show is that it's big.
Hmm.
And nowadays, a lot of producers want to just produce, you know,
Small.
tiny little shows.
Hmm.
You know, on Broadway, the maximum you'll see in a musical is like 14, 15 people, and they'll have a band of like eight. We have a band of 11, and we have a cast of 31.
Hmm.
And as a result of that's because we have understudies involved too. And so I don't know if the destination is Broadway. I don't know that Broadway, quite frankly, can afford something as grand as what they're going to see at the El Portal. I think maybe the destination would be the London West End, where it's a lot cheaper to present a musical of this size and scope. But the reason I bring that up is that in speaking of those old films, one of the things I've always really loved in the old movies were those movies that were a cavalcade of stars. In other words, like Grand Hotel, where it would be, Joan Crawford, Greta Garbo, John Barrymore, all in one film, or Dinner at Eight.
Because they were all under contract
Hmm.
to
Right.
studios in those days. So every now and then the studio would basically throw a movie party, find a movie, a property where they could showcase like 8, 10, 12 of their best stars. Grand Hotel, The Women. And our musical harks back to that tradition. So our casting responsibility was to find people who would have been stars under the contract system of that era, so that we have star turns all over the show for
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah, I mean, each person has a moment to step forward and be absolutely thrilling. I mean, I can briefly to go down the list of our inspirations. I mean, the woman who is owns the club and is the center of the story. I mean, she's sort of a combination of Lena Horne and Josephine Baker. And then you have, the guy who co-owns it with her, basically an Irish gangster, Jimmy Cagney. The young Frank Sinatra is in the show. Young hoofer dancer Donald O'Connor. There's a character that's sort of a combination of Rita Hayworth and Marilyn Monroe rolled into one. But you see all of these iconic figures and all of these different people playing them, and it makes for a thrilling evening.
So the audience will recognize immediately from the first number when all each character is introduced in this giant musical number that we've created to introduce them. They'll recognize, oh, that's that girl. Oh
Hmm.
yeah, that's like that guy in that movie or such movies. And then we did a little what I call bait and switch because they think they know these characters. Oh yeah, that's the girl who does this, and she's going to do that, and he's like that. He's the
And
gangster.
that they're the couple who are going to end up together, and everything will be like this.
And nothing turns out in Act Two the way those characters might have behaved in old movies. We turn it on its ear, so in Act Two, nothing goes the way it was expected to go from the audience's recognition
Yeah,
factor.
their perception of what that character ought to be.
Wow,
And that's kind of the fun of the show, I think, and the payoff of it.
that sounds incredible. That's exciting. Casting this, your two big stars at the top of the list uh come from incredible background. They have done major Broadway shows. What about them stood out to each of you?
Well, I'll address Lana Gordon
Mhm.
first. Lana Gordon came to us through our a casting director friend, Stephen DeAngelis, who knew of her. And we originally had a lady named Vivian Reed who would play the role.
This is a show back in its early days, 12 years ago or
Yeah,
so.
when we had the workshop. And, Vivian, basically at this particular point in her career, it's a monumental role, was something that she wasn't wanting to take on. And so it was a real problem in finding someone who had that kind of stage presence and that kind of power who could take this on. So Lana Gordon was a real gift. And then Luba Mason, it was very interesting. Luba Mason is the only person in this show who also participated in the workshop.
Which was 12 years ago.
Right.
And she's still dead on. She looks exactly the same. And
Sings the same.
she's such an exotic bird, you might say. She's an unusual person, an unusual actress. So she brings such a unique quality to a very difficult role. I mean, she plays a very wealthy person who has great difficulty dealing with reality ultimately. And she drives the entire plot. And Luba has an otherworldly quality about her. So you may think you know her on sight when she makes her statuesque entrance, but she turns everything on its ear. It's really exciting to watch her work.
Yeah, she's sort of a cool kind of husky voiced Ava Gardner. If you think back to those kind of, that was sort of our model. If you put Ava Gardner and the fire of Barbara Stanwyck together, you kind of got the character of Tess that she plays. And so the two of the women really drive the plot in many ways, but the other characters that you meet along the way, it's again, we mentioned the film of it, but there's a musical of Grand Hotel where you also meet all these characters. And the trick is simple. What you do is, in the case of a hotel, people 24 hours a day are coming in and out of the hotel, and you meet them as if they were checking in, so to speak. In this case, it's this nightclub called Dreamland, and they do exactly that in the opening number. They literally keep checking in, and we meet this one, we meet that one, and you have no idea how their stories are going to intersect. And that's really what we were very proud of, and what we felt the challenge was in writing it, and great fun.
You've talked a little bit about all the challenges that came to it, but how does it feel, going through this journey and getting to premiere night?
It's been a long road, but a fun one. We recorded a great demo CD for the purpose of letting people hear what the show would sound like. And that we did, I remember, Inauguration Day 2009. That was the day Barack Obama was inaugurated. We recorded our demo, and you can still hear it's a fantastic record, if I may say so myself, where I was able to bring the orchestral sound. What is this show going to sound like? It's not generic big band.
It's funny, only 1,000 of them were pressed. And we gave them out to various producers, and we have only a couple left. And I saw it on eBay, and it went
Really?
it went for like about $250. This CD, people were like, it has a little bit of a cult following. This
I
musical,
didn't know
they've
that.
been following us for a little while.
I didn't realize that. Well, and then it doesn't seem like that long to us now, but at the time we went from the demo, we had almost productions here and almost productions at that theater and London and here and there. And then finally we did a pre-Broadway workshop production. And what that is this is what every Broadway show does nowadays, rather than an out-of-town tryout necessarily. They do the show in a giant studio in New York. And we had the 30 cast members, the band, we had the set, we had the costumes, and we showed it to all of the Broadway producers and personnel. And that's how it's done these days. It's not cheap, but we did it, and that is when we knew what we had in that. Ever since then, we have gone through the stages. It takes a village to put on a Broadway musical, and it takes a couple years. So finally, I am so happy that we are finally presenting this to the public. It's the first time the public gets to see
Just
it.
for a little just for a little, insight on how these things all go down. I don't mind spilling a little dirty laundry. I won't name names, but I'll go ahead and say, after that first workshop, we had a Tony Award winning team, multiple Tony Award winning team.
A producer team.
Yeah, take us to lunch, woo us, wanted to option the property for Broadway then and there. The problem was they wanted a director to direct it. I've actually written and directed the show, which used to be very common.
Hmm.
George Abbott did it, Bob Fosse did it, numerous directors and choreographers did it. Nowadays, it's less common. And they wanted a director. They loved what I did, but they wanted a director who had had more Broadway background than, quite frankly, than I have, despite having directed 200 stars and major Broadway people my entire career. They wanted someone else. We looked at each other and we turned them down. And to this day, we're not sorry that we did that. And then we had another producer that was going to come on that died. I
Wow.
don't mean to laugh. I only mean that was a sad occurrence, but just the irony of it.
Hmm.
And then we were going to go to London and we couldn't find the right star for the right number of weeks at the theater. So you see, this musical actually has been sought out by a number of producers and almost produced many times. It was just the timing and the way that the stars came together.
Right. When you see a Broadway show, I mean, it's interesting. The public perception is that everything's planned.
Hmm.
I mean, a giant Broadway show that
Right.
costs millions of dollars and it opens at the Luntfontein or whatever theater on Broadway. And the public sort of assumes, naturally enough, that, oh, this is planned, this is scheduled, everything is a master plan. Wrong. Broadway shows are accidental. And by that, I
Literally.
mean, like our show, they've been worked on, they've been conceived and are waiting in the wings. In New York, theater availability is a huge problem. You can have the greatest show on earth waiting to play on Broadway, and there's no theater available. And so,
At
what
the time your star is available. Nowadays they'll do television stars or movie stars, and they can't get the window right for a number of years.
So, so our show is the same. It takes a couple of years, and it takes all of the stars in alignment, and I mean stars quite literally. We happen to get Lana Gordon, who's so fantastic and has appeared in a number of Broadway shows and projects. She was available. That's key. And Luba Mason, 12 Broadway shows, always working. She was available. So it was really the stars in alignment. And in a way, life is imitating art because in our
Although
show, the
I
stars come together and our performers came together. So this was a great window of opportunity at the El Portal.
although I will say, as the person who was mostly involved in those negotiations and putting that together, in this particular instance, it was a little more riskier than that in the sense that we were forced to announce the show
Hmm.
prior to actually having the people to play the roles. It was
A leap of faith,
a
let's
leap of
say.
faith this time. And I have to say, because the roles are so, have to be so triple threat, packed with talent, that, to say that we're actually opening on March 14th, 2025 was a leap of faith that we could get the right people in the right at the right time. We are very proud of this cast, but boy, we went to the end of the earth to find them. Auditions New York, auditions in LA. We looked under every rock to find
Wow.
the people we finally got.
And one of our audition days, this was very sad. It happened to be at exactly the day after the fires started in
In
Los
LA, our
Angeles.
audition was that day.
And as a result, I mean, all ended happily, thankfully, but it was dicey. I mean, the very first day of auditions, no one knew what was going to happen. And we actually have like something like five cast members who were cast from their audition that day that drove out from wherever they live to North Hollywood and auditioned while the fires were
Right?
raging. Then, fortunately, it took maybe a week, maybe 4 days that the fires were under control, and then we cast the rest of the company. But that's a serious matter, and I sometimes take it for granted, but these actors went the extra mile, quite literally, to come see us and be a part of the show. And
It was great.
I think that's partly the crackling excitement at rehearsal because it's not a show that they take for granted. It's something of a gift for them. How many musical theater performers of great skills get a chance to go stand center stage and stop the show?
Hmm.
Which is Scott's and my personal philosophy. We love people who stop shows. And these people know how to do it. And now we've provided them with the material, great songs and the comedy and the acting and the all the things congeal. So we have an evening of
Yeah, the other thing
showstoppers.
people should know about the show, big time, I think, is that despite all the great songs and the great arrangements Fred has done with them, it is very much a dance musical taking place in a 1947 nightclub. The opportunities for choreography are massive, and the show really has a pulse in that it never stops. It's
How many dancers do we have? It's something like
there are 16 dancers, 8 men and 8 women.
you don't see that so often
Mhm.
these days.
No, and I mean, I won't compare it. I mean, I know it's audacious to compare it to the most famous, highly praised show of all time these days, Hamilton. But in the way, and the music, of course, is nothing like Hamilton. But when I watched Hamilton, which was, had that very, very impressive, staging, by my feeling about it was that it never stopped. It was one fluid, moving animal that just it once it grabbed you, it really for 2.5 hours it never let go.
Mhm.
And that's really what we want this to be. It's a hell of a ride. And that's what we're excited about bringing and showing audiences. Come on that roller coaster with us. It's going to be a blast.
Definitely. Well, congratulations on One for My Baby. I'm so happy the stars aligned that and you guys are able to premiere it this Saturday, March 14th. And thank you very much for your time.
I hope you can come. I hope you'll be there.
I will be there. I'm excited.
Great. We got some
Fantastic.
tickets for you.
Thank you so much.